a new day in the Bahamas with a newly elected government taking over. And some of the new leaders, the Caribbean island, are now making history. Our One Caribbean News' Deandra Hamilton brings us details on the new government leaders and their plans to improve the country.
They are calling it the Blueprint for Change.
Just 22 years ago, 22 days ago, my government was elected with a mandate to bring about a new day in our Bahamas.
Laughter and excitement as the peaceful transition of government was evident at the official opening of Parliament on Wednesday in the Bahamas. Less than 3 weeks on the job, and the Philip Davis-led PLP government administration is living the New Day mantra of their winning election campaign, with changes at the parliamentary level being both dramatic and appreciated. The most women elected to the House and assigned to the cabinet, a woman presiding over the Senate, and a woman named as Speaker of the House. The youngest Senate Vice President in Bahamian history, a young man, stood motivated, and a Cat Island native, Philip Davis, as the new Prime Minister leading the charge. The Governor General, His Excellency Cornelius Smith, delivered the PLP government's blueprint for change in the anticipated speech from the throne.
Today, my government proposes our blueprint for change.
Given the complexities, tragedies, and adversities heaped upon the Bahamas amidst the coronavirus pandemic, the blueprint smartly proposed redoing what was the previous administration's undoing.
My government will therefore introduce legislation and policies to fully address future major health risks to avoid the need for emergency orders.
Poor weather, construction downtown, and the need for physical distancing led to a change of venue to the Baha Mar Resort. The opening of Parliament was for the first time held outside of Parliament.
And that was our Deandra Hamilton reporting there. Well, meantime, infrastructure is the big topic on Capitol Hill this week. That included a hearing on Puerto Rico's electrical grid. Our Washington correspondent Matt Knadler has the story.
Well, a hearing this week in the House Natural Resources Committee highlighted both the struggles and the future goals of electricity generation and transmission across Puerto Rico. The hearing focused on the transition from the Puerto Rico Electric Power Authority, or PREPA, to Luma Energy, a private company. Now, Puerto Rico Congresswoman Jennifer Gonzalez Colon noted several extended outages this summer across Puerto Rico. She says the grid is 1,000 megawatts short of the estimated daily load, even with backup generators running. Now, she's calling on Luma and PREPA to offer specifics on how to improve the system as the U.S. territory works to include more renewable energy into its electricity generation.
If we see that the whole system will barely meet demand, and any spike could bring it down.
We're making changes intended to improve our performance, and among these are senior level management change, power plants needs assessment, and asset management strategies, among others.
The hearing also addressed the nearly $10 billion from FEMA to the Puerto Rican government to aid in that clean energy transition. Some studies show that money could cover costs for a new solar energy grid. Officials urge the committee to investigate Luma, as the company could ultimately control those federal funds. Luma officials say the COVID pandemic and rebuilding from Hurricanes Maria and Irma have delayed several key repairs.
In order to move forward, we are focusing on creating change of the physical infrastructure, but also of business processes and the creation of our very own company culture.
Puerto Rico has a goal of 50% renewable electric energy by 2030, 100% by 2050, and Congresswoman Gonzalez Colon says that right now that is just 2%. In Washington, Matt Knadler, One Caribbean News.
All right, thanks, Matt. Well, in an effort to reduce the number of positive COVID infections among pregnant and breastfeeding women, the Ministry of Health in Guyana has rolled out a targeted vaccination campaign. Earlier this year, there was much skepticism surrounding pregnant women and breastfeeding women getting vaccinated, as there was limited scientific data on this issue. However, Minister of Health Dr. Frank Anthony said that studies have shown that vaccines are safe for women to take.
Most of the obstetric societies globally have been encouraging pregnant women to get vaccinated in any one of the trimesters, whether first, second, or third, because the vaccine is safe and it is protective. Observing from the cases that we have locally, almost every day we are seeing between 15 to 20 cases of persons with COVID-19 who come into our hospitals. Currently, we would have had cases at Ocean View. We have cases here at the Georgetown Public Hospital. And it is a challenge to manage these patients, especially if they have some form of respiratory distress. So that is posing a challenge.
And to educate women on the importance of vaccines, doctors will be conducting sensitivization exercises at various health centers across the country. And now a warning about COVID booster shots from the top FDA vaccine official. A third dose of the Pfizer vaccine may cause lymph nodes to swell. The official says it's harmless and only temporary, but says women especially need to be aware. Mandy Gaither explains.
Since August 13th, more than 6 million people who received Pfizer's COVID-19 vaccine have rolled up their sleeves for a third time.
The most common thing by far is feeling somewhat tired after the dose.
Dr. Peter Marks, the FDA's top vaccine official, says side effects from a third dose are very similar to those from a second dose, but after the booster, he says more people are reporting swollen lymph nodes.
That happens with vaccines. They go away within just a couple days, usually to a week. Nothing to panic over.
Since lymph nodes can be found in the armpit area, Dr. Marks says women need to be aware, especially if they're scheduled for an annual breast exam.
You might want to get your mammogram first before you get it, or you might want to wait a couple weeks because if those lymph nodes turn up on a mammogram, they may trigger false further investigation.
Dr. Marks says if you're set to get a booster and a mammogram, talk to your doctor.
It's really a harmless thing, except if it triggers extra medical investigation. So that's just something to be aware of.
And now those eligible for a third dose of the Pfizer vaccine fall into one of three high-risk groups: anyone 65 or older, adults with immunocompromised conditions, putting them at high risk for severe COVID-19, and adults at risk of frequent exposure because of their job.